recovery conference in New York City. Fernando and I and Ozzy were there, and we heard this gentleman speak at what we call a spiritual meeting on a Sunday morning. And at the end of his speaking, without a moment's thought, the entire room just stood up and we started clapping. And I was so moved by him that immediately after that speech, I went to him and said to him, "We have a conference in 2 years. Would you mind committing to that?" No. I did tell him about the conference that we have in 2 years, and he said, "Call me." I said, "Cool, all right." He lives in Puerto Rico. His name is Miguel Soto, also called Mikey Perfecto. Mikey Perfecto is his musical name that he has been involved with since he was a kid. He has a book called Embodying Soul, I Live to Use and Use to Live. He has a table outside with some of the books. I've already gotten mine dedicated and purchased it. And he's really not making any money on it. He's just selling it for what he got it for, basically. And it's a fabulous story. I'm about halfway through, and I've learned so much about this incredible man. Let me just say that he's known in the world of urban genre as Mikey Perfecto. He's an urban troubadour, poet, and musician, molded by the Big Apple and the island of Puerto Rico. With his art, he has been able to disconnect himself from the loneliness of the neighborhood, bringing the joy of his songs with a sense of tradition and pride that very few of his generation have been able to capture. His collaborations with internationally known Cuban-American singer Celia Cruz on La Negra Tiene un Tumbao, he actually wrote that. Los latinos saben de lo que yo estoy hablando, ¿verdad? Dale un aplauso. La Negra Tiene un Tumbao means that black woman's got some rhythm. He also, with Puerto Rican recording artist Olga Tañón, on his very own composition, Cuando Tú No Estás, which is When You're Not Here. In your folders, you will have the English and Spanish version of that song. And his many collaborations and compositions for artists such as Ivy Queen, Daddy Yankee, Obi Bermudez, and Grupo Mania, among others, earned him the nickname of urban genre songwriter. Mikey is a product of the metropolis and Caribbean landscape, actively participating in the creation and evolution of the urban movement that has captivated the world in different musical forms. Reggaeton, hip-hop, Latino, and the underground culture originating from Puerto Rico. In his book, En Cuerpo y Alma, Body and Soul, Mikey takes us through the beginnings of this movement and shares his successes, failures, victories, struggles, and defeats in a music business that many enjoy, but few really know. Much more than a book devoted to the music field, it officially documents a first-hand experience of this pioneer that tells as a testimony of how he survived, and it really is about survival, this book. It's absolutely amazing. The madness of the lifestyles of the first wave of exponents of urban music from Puerto Rico. Miguel recently graduated with his master's in social work. And is in recovery from opiate and other substance use, because you know we don't just use one drug. He's in recovery for 14 plus years. Put your hands together and let's give Mikey a warm Massachusetts welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm excited to be here. You know, Julia has really said it all. I would like to start by thanking the Bureau of Substance Abuse Services and the Consumer Advisory Board for taking the risk of inviting me. You know, when Julia called me and she said, yeah, I'm sorry, Julia. When Julia invited me, immediately I said yes, and then I started second guessing myself, and then I started getting nervous. And a few days ago and last night I was petrified. I was just totally petrified, and it's because I think in Spanish, and then I traduce it into English, and I was getting self-conscious, and all of a sudden I believe I got a spiritual awakening, and I said, you know what, Mike? These are your people. You're with your people. Stop, we're in this together, you know? And this is really a great honor. It's far greater than anything I've done in music, because this is me. This is not an act, this is me. And I need to tell you that when we talk about addiction and substance and addiction started affecting my life at a very, very early age. And let me give it to you. My mother was suffering from her kidneys, and she was on medication. She was drinking pills, medication, and I remember I was 4 years old when her twin brother appeared at our house unexpectedly. He got home from the army. He was carrying a few cases of beer, and my mother was so happy to see him that she decided to have a couple of beers with him, and she forgot she was taking medication. And I remember the morning after, I woke up and I went into my mother's room because I was hungry. I wanted to get a bottle of milk, and I was trying to wake up this woman, and she was so cold, and I struggled and struggled, and I couldn't wake her up, and my father woke up, and I found out that my mother had died of kidney failure. Without knowing what drugs or substance was, my life started to change. The house got full of people and cops, and my brother and sister woke up, and they were crying, and I didn't understand. Nobody explained anything. I was only 4 years old. And my life began to change. I recall that my father, his great idea was that, you know, I was 4. I wasn't yet going to school. He decided to keep my older brother and my older sister and to send me off to my grandmother's house. It was the first time that I felt abandoned. But I discovered that grandmothers are wonderful human beings. They're special. They're just so special. And this woman, my grandmother didn't know how to read and write, but she loved me so much. She believed in education, and she enrolled me into Catholic school, and she paid for my first music lessons, and she was there, and she just loved me. And everything she gave me, I always felt different. I don't know why, but everything she gave me seemed to fill that void. It felt so good. Everything she gave me. I mean, and I remember that I used to ask for a bicycle. She would buy it. I would buy material things, and I was trying to fill this emptiness with everything that came from outside. I didn't know this. And but still, I need to tell you that during my childhood, this was the best time of my life, living with my grandmother. We lived in Philadelphia. This is where I first heard gospel music and fell in love with it. Yes, Jesus loves me. Oh, yeah, yes, Jesus loves me. I fell in love with it. And my grandmother loved it. So you know, I was going to school, and I remember when I was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, I started noticing that my grandmother started forgetting things. She would forget to pay the rent, and she will forget where she placed her money. And she had always loved me so much that I just became her external memory. I started taking care of her. It was only natural, you know. I said, you know what, she's forgetting things, let me remind her. And I was taking care of her, and everything was fine. And one day I went to school, and when I got back, she wasn't in the house. And I was petrified, I was scared. I looked all over the neighborhood, I couldn't find her. It was very cold, it was winter. And I didn't sleep that night. And I remember the next morning, I heard the doorbell, and one of the sisters from the Catholic school was there. She was looking for me. And she saw the look on my face, and she said, "We found your grandmother, but don't worry, she's all right. She just got lost." And they found her in front of a McDonald's. She was almost frozen, and the only thing she could remember was that she has a boy that went to St. Peter's School, and they called us, and this is why we went to pick her up. So when I go to pick up my grandmother, my uncle, her son, was there, and this is where we found out that she was in the first stages of Alzheimer's disease. And my uncles, who knew that I was not her son, I was her daughter's son, said to me, "You are going to Puerto Rico, and you're going to your father's house." Now I need to tell you that I did not have a bonding with my father. I did not know who this man was. I was not attached to my brothers or sisters. I mean, like, I couldn't believe what they were telling me. I was like, how are you going to send me to Puerto Rico? I don't know these people. And he said, well, you know, you got to go because, you know, we're putting her in a home and you're not staying with us. And that was their plan. And that's how they did it. They put me on a plane one day, and they didn't even give me the chance to say goodbye to my teachers or my friends. They just made my bags and put me on a plane. When I got to Puerto Rico, another uncle picked me up, and he was even crueler because he didn't say a word. I like to think that he didn't want to bond with me. That's why he was so cold. He just put me in his car and took me to a town called Cataño, Puerto Rico, which is it's like a big ghetto. I love the place because it's my home, but it's like this place. It's very dangerous. It's one of the most dangerous towns in Puerto Rico. And he just drove up to a raggedy old house. He opened the door. He put my luggage in front of the house. And he said to me, he called the man who was drinking beer. He said, "Listen, this is your son." And he told me, "This is your father." And he got on the car and he left. I don't need to tell you how scared I was. I was only 13. I thought I was a man, but I was just a boy. And my father, he said, well, you know, my brother had left. He had enrolled in the army, and my sister had eloped. Everybody was trying to get away from the house. My uncles, my father lived there with another uncle, and they were both full-blown alcoholics. My first days in Puerto Rico were awful. I went to bed hungry. I had no friends. I didn't know what was going on. I was only thinking of Philadelphia and going back home. I felt like I wasn't home. As time passed, I was not a dumb child. I said to myself, you know what? My father's the guy who controls the economy here. He's the guy who goes in and out. He works. He has the money. I have to find a way to connect with him. So I remember one day, I said to him, Dad, it was the first time I called him Dad. It was manipulation, I guess, right? I said, Dad, can I go with you? I mean, I don't want to stay here by myself again. And he said, well, come on. He took me to a strip joint. And it was the first night that I drank alcohol. 13 years old. I didn't like the taste. I had always heard drugs were bad and alcohol was bad. You know, Catholic school, for God's sake, you know. But I thought I was doing something good because at least I was hanging with my father. I was feeling that I was not alone anymore, and it was the first night I got drunk. I started drinking on a regular basis, and I started wandering around the neighborhood, and it was the time of breakdance and hip hop. And Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. It's the oldest colony on earth. And it's a reflection of what happens in the United States. So hip hop and urban music was, in its American form, really dominating the youth. And I was really good at it because all my friends was from the projects. I'm from Philly, you know? So I knew I knew hip hop and breakdance, and I became popular around the neighborhood. And the friends that I made, my new acquaintances, I remember one day they were smoking something that made them laugh. And I didn't know what they were doing, but I remember that when one of them asked me, he said, "Mikey, do you smoke?" I said, "Yes." I didn't want to be different. I needed to fit in. And I remember I smoked that, and it was weed, of course, and I choked up, and they were laughing, but something happened. I remember that I started feeling relief from all that pain that I was carrying. And it felt like it felt like they were my family. They were like friends. We were having a good time. This is what, in my mind, I didn't understand that I had a disease already so young. I had the disease of addiction, and I was learning how to numb my feelings and not live life. I was learning how to escape. And I started doing this on a regular basis, and I became friends with two of the kids from the block, who, by the way, are both dead because of this disease. And we were hanging together. We were always at the playground. And I remember that one day, this drug dealer that everybody respected came around, and he said to us, "I see that you're always in the playground, and you can make money. I'm going to give you my material, and you're going to sell it here, and you're going to make $2 off every bag you sell. And what you're going to be selling is dope." And my friends and I, we said, "Oh my God, we're going to be gangsters. We are going to be we got it now, you know." And we put two and two together, and we said, well, now we can make money, and we're going to be famous, and everybody's going to respect us. And we were so confused. So we started doing that, and business started to rise, and we started noticing that in Spanish they called addicts tecatos, right? It means addicts. It means junkie, right? So we started noticing that the junkies, as they called them, would wait for us every morning, and we felt powerful. We felt like they needed us. And one of my friends, one day, they say curiosity killed the cat. He said, we were having this conversation, and he said, "You know what? What do you think they feel? Why do they look for this dope with so much effort? Why are they waiting for us? What's this? You know what? I have an idea." And I said, "What's the idea?" He said, "Let's open one bag, and we'll each take a sniff of dope, and we'll do it one time, and we won't do it again." And I said, "I'm down. I want some. Yes, let's do it." And when I tried that drug, it was something else. I mean, when the first hit of dope that I took, I turned into a different person. I mean, like, the pain went away. Like, all that hurt and all the misery that I had been going through, it just changed. And we started using on a regular basis, and during this time, the reggaeton movement was beginning, and I became a street poet. And we would start going to bars after going to the spot, and it was the nightlife. So I did not know what I was getting into. I was functional, like they say. I thought I was having a good time. And I started having tolerance for this substance. And from half a bag, it turned into one bag, and then it turned into 2 bags, and then it turned into 3 bags, and we know how it goes, right? And one morning, I woke up, and I went to the spot, because I was no longer selling. I became my best client. you know. So I went to the spot to get my dose, and I didn't have enough money. And I remember that addict that was there, he was an old addict. He said to me, you know what, if you only buy one bag, you're gonna be dope sick. I have an idea. I said, what? He said, well, buy a syringe, buy the cooker, and just shoot it up. Do it one time and then don't do it again. Talk about committing the same mistake, expecting a different result. I listened. That was like the best advice on earth. I said, yes, let me do it. And that was when everything just really fell on top of me. My appearance started to change, and I was, it was all about the drug after that. And I was not dumb. I was trying to stop, and I had tried everything, and that was including religion, because my grandmother was very religious. I had prayed on it. I had tried everything to stop. I even tried to put drugs in a drawer and say this one is for tomorrow. That never worked. No, it never worked. I would stay up all night and I would look at the drawer. And at 12:01, I would say it's tomorrow. So, it just never worked. So, I tried everything, but then I had this big idea, because in the neighborhood, being an urban poet and all this, I had started going out with a girl who was not my girlfriend, but she was something like a girlfriend, but you know what I mean, right? So I said to myself, you know what I need is responsibility. I need to just get down with this girl, make it serious, and just stay with her. And, I'm going to stop using once I shack up with her or marry her or whatever, have kids, my life is going to change. That was my solution to it. It just didn't work, because the complexities of a relationship with a person who does not know how to relate to himself. It was amazing. When I got into this relationship, I don't know, when women love a man, they will do anything. And she followed me, and she believed in me, and she fell in love, and I put this girl to hell and back. I mean, it was incredible, and she didn't know the magnitude of my addiction, but she soon found out. She found out. She started becoming aware, but she became pregnant. We had we had a baby girl, and it came to the point where, we had problems, and the expected problems that addicts have in their relationships. And one day, looking for a way to stop, I said, I need to tell you, I went to a 12-step program trying to convince her to stay with me, because this is what I was doing. I was trying to make promises so that she wouldn't leave me. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Like once you get hot in your house, you try to cool things down. So I went to a 12-step program and found out about it, but it wasn't for me. I mean, these people, they don't know what they're talking about. I said, what? Just for today? Are you crazy? And so it was really for the wrong reasons. So, but they planted a seed, because I noticed that the only time I was able to stay clean for a month was with these people. But I went back out, and one day in one of our fights, I said to her, you know what? I know what the problem is. The problem is Puerto Rico. That's the problem. In Puerto Rico, there are too many drug spots, and I know everybody, and we need to move to a place where it's harder for me to find drugs. And she looked at me, and she believed me, and she said, Mike, I'm with you. I will go wherever you say. Let's do it. So we packed up our bags, and we moved to the Bronx. Thank goodness that there are no drugs in the Bronx. And from the Bronx, we moved to Newark, New Jersey. Thank God there's no drugs in Newark, right? And I discovered that I have this only talent, that I could work with the federal government if they wanted to, because I can find drugs anywhere. I know who has them. I know who sells them. I know where they're at. I mean, I can find them. I remember that my sister, when she first took us to Newark, she says to me in a loving way, she says, please don't go into the projects. And I said, why? She said, because they have dope and they have coke and they have all these things. And imagine where I went first. I had, like, my best friends were from the projects. And moving to these places gave me the opportunity to take advantage of other people who didn't know me. And I began using again. It was crazy. I totally stopped my life, and it was all about doing drugs. My wife, I was not able to be there for my daughter or my wife. She had to get a job, and I was living off of her. And still making promises. I remember that in one of our fights, I decided to go to a 12-step program in Jersey, and I met some people in recovery there. And one of the persons there gave me his phone number, and I think I called him once or twice, and I put the phone number in my wallet and just forgot about it. And I started using on a regular basis, and I started hitting bottom. And I found out that hitting bottom in the United States is far worse than hitting bottom in Puerto Rico. I mean, a drug is a drug. But let me give it to you. In Puerto Rico, it's 80 degrees. You can sleep out on a bench, on the beach, or everything. But you try that in New York when it's below zero, you can't do it. I mean, it's just, it can't be done. I mean, and I remember that my wife was fed up, and she was working, and one day, she was trying to scrape up some money for the rent, and she had it in her purse, and I was dope sick, and I said to her, "Can give me $20?" And she said no. And addicts, that's like the worst word you can tell an addict is no, right? And so I played it off. I said okay, and she went in to take a shower, and she left her wallet out. She left her purse out, and my mind just went crazy, and I started saying, you know what, I need to get fixed. I can't stay like this. She's gonna go to work, and I'm sick, and so I decided to go into her purse and steal from her, steal from my family, steal from me, and I ran to the spot, and I remember that when I did the drugs and I got high, I immediately felt so guilty for what I had done. And I said to myself, what have I become? And I was walking back to the house, and from a distance, I saw my wife, and she was sitting on the front steps with my daughter in her arms and with 2 bags. And when I approached her, she was crying. She was crying like I had never seen somebody cry before. And she said to me, you know what, Mike, I love you. You are the man of my life. I really adore you, but I have to leave. I can't stay here and watch you kill yourself. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna put our daughter through this. And I began to cry because she was telling me the truth. And it wasn't that we had not fought before, or we had not left each other before. It was that this time it was different. I found out that when women are fed up and they say it's over, it's over. You know, and I just didn't have the strength to stop her. And a cab pulled up and she left. It was, you know, she walked up to me and she gave me a kiss. It was the last kiss I gave her. She left. She disappeared. And when an addict is alone without his codependence, you start feeling the bottom. Because I had nobody there to blame. I had nobody there to take responsibility for me. I was forced to look at myself. I sold everything in the apartment. I wasn't paying rent. I wound out on the streets. And I remember that it was so cold that what I needed to do was I used to get on the train. I used to spend the night on the train, and I would ride it to the last stop, and then I would have to freeze my butt off for 15, 20 minutes until it started again to ride it back to the other side. And you can't sleep like that because it goes from neighborhood to neighborhood, and you go to the Italian neighborhood, and then to the you go to where our black brothers live, and then you go to the Latin, and it, you know, different people come in and out. So you're jumping all night. You don't really sleep. And I was doing that a couple of days, and I remember that this last, I was really so strung out. And I started thinking, I need to put an end to all of this. I just need to die. I can't do this anymore. I want to die. And I was in that train, and the only thing, my only prayer, I would say, God, please give me the courage to jump under this train when it just leaves. I can't do this, and I want to die. I've lost everything. My life is worthless. And I was on that train, and I remember when the train stopped, I had decided I was going to kill myself. And when the train stopped, right in front of me, there was a payphone. And I said, I heard a voice, and it said, you know what? Call that guy from NA. And I said to myself, you know, but I have no money. I couldn't find his number in my wallet. And then I started rationalizing. I said, well, it's New York. I mean, like, all payphones, they don't work. I mean, like, why do this, you know? But I walked to that phone, and I picked up the phone, and I heard the dial tone. And I decided to call collect. And this is where I see the big miracle, because in Puerto Rico we have, it's a tonic, it's called memory power. I believe that I bought 3 vials of memory power. I drank 2 and I forgot where I put the 3rd one. This is how bad, I forget everything. So I just decided to guess. I said, it's more or less, I know it's a 973, yeah, whatever. And so I told the operator a number that I was thinking was the one, and halfway through the call, I was about to hang up when I heard somebody say, yes, I accept the call. I accept the charges. And when I heard this man in recovery, his name was Raul, I just started to cry. And I said, I want to kill myself. I've lost everything. I want to stop. I'm in pain. I can't take this anymore. And he said to me, where are you? And I said, I'm in a place that's called Penn Station. And he said, I'll be there in a minute. And this is a man in long-term recovery who had a job, who has a relationship, who had no reason to go meet this junkie at a subway station to talk to me. But he did that. He walked and he took me to a Dunkin' Donut. And I was all I had not bathed like in two or 3 days. I mean, it was crazy. I was on the street. And he started talking to me. And as he spoke to me, something happened. He rolled up his sleeve and he showed me his marks. And he said, I've been clean for 16 years. And if you want what we have, you can do this. You can do this. And something happened to me. I believed what he was telling me. I believed for the first time in my life, I believed that my life was worth something, that I could do it. So I started following him around. That night he took me to a shelter. He gave me his number. He told me where he worked. And I became his shadow. He became a sponsor of mine. And he gave me suggestions. And one of the things that he told me was to be part of my recovery. He said, you know what? You have to own this. You have to give a service. Do something. Just keep coming. Meet people. Get involved with your recovery. So I started doing that. And in Jersey, they had, in like the 12-step programs, they had a position of coffee maker. And with the first couple of 30 days, right, they let you make coffee. So they needed a service, somebody to give that service, and I raised my hand, and they gave me this old-fashioned big coffee pot, which I would take to the shelter, and some coffee, and they trusted me with that because they trusted a thief with all this, you know. So they gave me that, and I wish you would have seen how proud I was with my coffee pot and with my bus card, getting on the bus because these addicts told me that they needed me for the first time in so long. And I kept coming back, and I started accumulating time, and like the first couple of months, I didn't know how to do anything else. I wanted to make some money. I was on welfare. So reggaeton was becoming hot in the United States. It was hot already in Puerto Rico. And I started gigging, and one of the things that happened was that I was on stage in a club one day, and when I got off the stage, there was a record producer called Sergio George, and he gave me a card, and he said to me, they told us that you were performing here, and I wanted to come check you out. I would love you to record a song and work on a song with me for Celia Cruz. And I said, for that old bag? She hasn't done anything like, I was crazy. I was really crazy, trust me. And he said, yes. So I took his card and I left it I put it in my pocket, and I continue on with life. A couple of days later, I start in a conversation with my brother, who's that's his favorite music. Salsa music is his favorite music. I talk to him and I say, you know what, somebody wants me to record a song with Celia Cruz. And he said, what are you saying? Celia Cruz is a Latin legend. Record with her, please. So he convinced me, and he loaned me his clothes because I had no clothes. And I went to the studio, and I met Miss Celia Cruz, who was already 70-something years old. She reminded me of my grandmother, and instinctively, I started treating her like if she was my grandmother, and she just loved me. And I remember when we were in the studio, they were trying to pitch some ideas that she wasn't really feeling. And I knew reggaeton was the new stuff coming up, and I wasn't feeling what they were trying to do. They were trying to make her sing like R&B, and she wasn't really feeling it because she's all about the salsa and the stuff, right? And I said, they asked me, they said to me, well, what do you think? And I've always been very opinionated. I said, that's whack. And she looked at me and she said, well, what would you do? And I remember that I said, you have to change the whole beat, and it's all reggaeton. And what we could do is, La negra tiene tumbao, anda derechito, no camina de lado, ven aquí para poder compartir, porque eres tú la negra linda que me hace feliz, otra no quiero, eres tú la que me da inspiración. And we did that. And she said, azúcar, I like that. And she went crazy over it, and we recorded that, and she loved it, and they gave me a $5,000 advance. And I was like, wow, and I didn't go crazy. I went to my people in recovery, and I told them what was going on, and they walked through it, and they were with me, and I didn't know the impact of what I had just done. I was starting to believe in myself. It's never too late. It is never too late, I did not know. A couple of months later, I was walking down the street, and I heard a car go by, and I heard my voice, and I said, like, what? It was starting to go into mainstream radio, and it started playing on La Mega, and it started going up the charts, and it was everywhere, and they started calling me to have like these big gigs, and I was so afraid because I was not yet a year clean. But you know what I did? I went to my support group, and I raised my hand, and I said, look, they're inviting me to Latin Quarters to perform, and I am so afraid, and there's a lot of liquor there. I need help. And little did I know that when I performed and when I presented myself there, it looked like a convention. It was all addicts, because let me tell you, addicts love to party. Let me tell you one thing. But there's one thing. The only person who was very confused was the bartender, because he was like, yo, this place is packed and I'm only selling water and Coca-Cola. It was crazy. It was crazy. But that happened, and I'm trying to go quickly in the story. There's so much to say, but like a couple of months before me becoming a year clean, the people at Sony Records called me and they offered me a big contract, and they told me that I would have to move to Puerto Rico. And this is where I hit rock bottom. I became very nervous. I spoke to my people and they said, you know what? We believe that when things happen, it's because of a reason, and you're ready, and there's people in recovery in Puerto Rico. Just do what you have to do. Go to Puerto Rico and do your thing. And I went to Puerto Rico. I started doing recovery in Puerto Rico, and everything was wonderful. And I had always dreamed of like big things, like Grammys and stuff like that. And I thought that it was all over for me. I was just so happy to be clean. I thought that was just the end of the road, right? And one day they called me and they said, you know what, the song you recorded with and wrote for Celia has been nominated for 2 Grammys, and Miss Celia Cruz would like you to go with her to the Grammys. And I was overwhelmed. So immediately I said yes, and I thank God I was working, and you know that when we dress up, we dress up. So I bought clothes. I thought I was being like, I thought I was the star, you know. And I bought clothes and I went. They paid for everything. They took me to L.A. She told blame Julia. She said I have 10 minutes. So I'm going really quick. So I get to L.A. and I do all the rehearsals with Miss Celia. They you know. I don't know if you understand what I mean. I thought I was gonna die doing drugs, and to get to the airport and see a white limo, and I'm thinking it's for somebody else, and they're, no, it's for you, and I'm like, me? Yeah. You know, and you know, and I get there and I do all the rehearsals with Miss Celia, and she was nominated for the 2 Grammys, and the night that we were supposed to present ourselves, like the stars of the show, they go in through the red carpet. All the musicians and everybody who accompanies them goes in through the back. So I was supposed to go in through the back, but remember that I told you about the way I treated her like my grandmother? She came to me in the lobby and she said, it would be great if you could go in through the red carpet with me. And I said to myself, I can't believe that. I said, of course. So I went in and I walked in with her through the red carpet, and you know, I was just looking at all these cameras and the flashes, and I would look at all of them. I was just thinking to myself, I wish the ex-wife would see me, because I'm thinking like, how you like me now? How you like me now, girl? You know? I was like, yeah, you know? And we went in and you know, CBS, this is like a really big production, so everything is on a time limit, right? And I remember that I went into the dressing room, and in the Grammys, when you stand behind the curtain and they call you and they put up the curtain, you're live on national TV. And these are millions of viewers, right? So I was in the dressing room, and I remember that when they knocked and they said, 5 minutes and you're on. I sat there and the disease of addiction came back and told me, you know what, don't go out there. Don't go out there. You've always been a mess. Nobody loves you. You've always been a failure. Don't go out there. You're gonna mess up. You know what? Stay here. Forget it. It's over. And I was just so afraid. I just stood up and I just continued walking to the stage. And I stood behind that big curtain, and I was trembling and I was just so afraid. I was near tears, and I didn't know what to do. So I looked up and I said, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And at that time, there was this big fat guy from CBS, and he was working on some chords, and he just threw them to the side, and he turned around and said, do you go to a 12-step program? Because I go to a 12-step program. And I looked at him, and I just grabbed him, and I hugged him. And he said, it's gonna be okay. And it was my higher power just letting me know that all of you were there. And the curtain rose, and I had a great show. It was amazing. Miss Celia Cruz, we won 2 Grammys that night. It was amazing. It is never too late. It is never too late. And there is no wrong door to recovery, because in my support group, I have all types of people. And you know, when I got back home, I continued in recovery, and it's really been incredible. My life has changed again. I had not finished high school, and in recovery, these dreams came back to life. And they said, well, take a GED, finish high school, do whatever, and I did it. And after that, people in my recovery group walked me to the university where I acquired a bachelor's degree. After the bachelor's degree, I finished a master's degree in social work. After the master's degree, this month I finished a certificate in the doctorate program for clinical social work. I work with families and addicts, and one of the great miracles is that addiction took away the ability for me to take care of my kids. I work in the Department of Family and Children's Affairs in Puerto Rico, in the most dangerous neighborhoods, taking care of children. That this is a privilege and this is an honor, and God must have a sense of humor, because I have to take care of all of these kids. Before coming here, I had a young girl who did not want to speak to anybody, talk to me and look at my tattoos and connect with me and tell me, you know what, I am being abused by my stepfather. And this is what I deal with. And this is the privilege that I've had, to be an instrument in the hands of my higher power, because this is what you people gave to me. You took a negative and turned it into something positive. And it is never too late to let your higher power express himself through you. It is never too late. You see, I am here because I came to believe that it was possible. I came to believe that if I practiced these spiritual principles to the best of my abilities, I was not only going to stop using drugs, I was going to become a better person. And that's who I am today. I don't look at the floor anymore. When they talk to me, I look up. Thank you. Before, I need to say this before I leave. I know Julia's going to be relieved when I'm done. I know that there's a lot of people in the field. I work in the field with people who are still using. And a lot of people in Puerto Rico, they call it service. No, because we're providing services for this and services for that. I call it love. I just call it love. Because I'm here. Thank you. I'm here, and it's not because they told me the rules or they made an intervention plan or any of that. I am here because somebody made me feel that my life was worth living, that my life had a meaning. This is why I'm here. So I need to say something to the people in recovery. If you're in short-term recovery or if you're in long-term recovery, I want you to know that the day that you decide that this miracle is yours, believe me, it's yours. Thank you very much for having me today. Thank you.